taking this show on the road to the beautiful paradise of Aotearoa. Scenic views, adventurous activities, and cold beer. Why? Because it wouldn't be a series on New Zealand conspiracies without an episode on the Fiordland moose. The moose is the stuff of legends. We know the moose came here, but is the Fiordland moose still alive?
Bubbah, COVID cases are through the roof. We can't go to Te anymore. But we could animate Te
The majestic moose. I want to meet the creatures that look like they're from Narnia. Hey, I'm Bubbah, your favourite South Auckland dog mum. And I'm investigating the mystery moose in Southland. Why? Because when I was visiting my cousin in Alaska, I saw some moose. So they're my pals now, and they're really bloody magical. So if they were living in Aotearoa, I'd want to meet them. I asked my cousin what it's like to live amongst the moose. Here's what he had to say.
They just live in their best life. They pop up wherever they want. They cross the streets. They'll do you damage, bruh.
Now let's get stuck in and find these moose. Mice. What's the plural? Fiordland is New Zealand's largest national park, spanning from Southland to Canterbury on the west coast of the South Island. In the early 1900s, a number of American moose were released into the Fiordland bush for recreational hunting. And although authorities say that the moose went extinct decades ago, there's still talk that they're out there. And when I say talk, I mean talk. Fiordland's main access point is the beautiful lake town of Aotearoa. The locals there are really interested in the story. So in the middle of the town, they have a restaurant called The Moose. And moose hunting is listed as an activity on the Milford Sound tourism website. Although I couldn't meet the locals in person, I've been reading some comments online. I need to hear more about this evidence, and Ken Tustin, the biologist, is the absolute authority. He's been working since the 70s to confirm the existence of moose in Fiordland, and he's got some pretty interesting findings. I can't go, so we're sending Digi Bubbah. Just choosing to fit that one. We couldn't go to Aotearoa, so we've got the next best thing. Hey Ken, how's it going?
Hi Bubbah, nice to meet you.
I've just got a few questions for you. The last confirmed photo of a moose was in the 50s. Can you tell us what's happened since then?
In the 1950s, there was a few well-publicised hunts, and that left us with photographs, dead and alive. Then they dropped out of sight and off the radar, really, until about 1971, when a rumour circulated around Te here that a meat hunter had shot one. That resulted in a request from the Parks Board to undertake a survey. And a year later, 1972, I was the one that ran the survey.
Wow.
We concluded, after 11 weeks in the scrub, that there was indeed a tiny population of moose hanging on by just a thread.
And what evidence do you have that proves that moose are out there?
One of the most striking bits of evidence we found in 1972 was a cast antler. But the most powerful evidence we have of moose is really their distinctive browsing sign. You know, they leave hoof prints and they leave droppings and they leave bedding places.
What do you think's so special about moose being in Fiordland?
Their history is one that's been always full of secrecy, either to protect the animal or they kept it secret because they thought if they'd shot one, they'd committed some sort of offence.
And last but not least, what is the plural of moose?
You've got one moose, you've got 20 moose. Wouldn't that be nice?
20 moose would be nice, and Fiordland seems so mysterious. Let's recap the facts.
In 1910, moose were transported from Canada to New Zealand and released into the Fiordland bush as introduced game for recreational hunting. In 1952, the last confirmed photo of a moose was taken and they were thought to have gone extinct. Since then, biologists, hunters and other curious cats have found clear evidence that the moose are still roaming the fields, with the last major sighting in 2020. But with no clear photographic evidence, authorities will not accept that the moose are still alive.
What were some of the browsing signs that Ken talked about? Ooh, that's a mean spot.
You know, they leave hoof prints and they leave droppings and they leave bedding places. The most distinctive feeding sign moose leave is the way they reach, grasp, break and strip by dragging the branch through its mouth.
And then Ken found an antler, I don't think you can get any better than that.
I hit up my cousin Lyndon again, the one that lives in Alaska, to tell me more about the majestic moose. Here's what he had to say.
They abide by their own golden rule. And that golden rule is, don't f with me, and I won't f with you. Ain't no petting these motherfuckers. These motherfuckers is huge.
They are so magical. Moose, the creatures that look like they're from Narnia. Why were they brought here to be hunted? Leave the moose alone. Who does that? Yeah, okay, I think there's a chance that there's moose out there. And it'd be pretty cool if there was, because they're big and magical and scary, and maybe you could actually get a baby moose and train it to be a guard moose. So, Matt. Sorry, I'm going to put these away. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yeah, so I teach a School of Psychology at Massey University, and I do research on misinformation and conspiracy theories.
How does a conspiracy bring a community together or help connect individuals?
Yeah, so something we found in psychology is that people can form a sense of community or solidarity with one another from a really quite minimal basis. So there's even some experiments suggesting that if we put people into groups purely on a random basis, they will start to like people in their own group better than people in other groups. So a shared sense of belief in a particular mystery or conspiracy theory can be enough.
Are there any dangers to conspiracies bringing people together?
Yeah, there can be. So if we form a community with other people who have the same belief about us in relation to one topic, often we can start to develop the same set of beliefs about other topics too. And we can end up in a little bit of an echo chamber where there might not be someone available to correct us or point out when we're getting things wrong. And that can be a little bit dangerous.
So I didn't get to see a New Zealand moose, but if they're out there, then they're in the good hands of Southland. And I'll do what I can for animals from afar. And the investors, and hello. Now let's get stuck in and find those motherfuckers. Although authorities say that the moose went to Why me? Cut!